down visiting some relatives, her aunt and uncle who were good friends of mine, and we met, and she was down for a week with a friend, and we spent a little time together. She seemed to be a nice, perspicacious young lady. And so she went back to Canada, and we started writing, corresponding a little bit, and it came about that she was, after a number of months, our friendship grew, and she was going to come down and for a couple of months stay with Donna and Noreen and care for her grandmother, who was staying with Donna and Noreen because she had some time off from work. And so she was going to drive down from Canada with her sister. At the last minute, her sister had to back out. And so Noreen came to me and asked me if I would go up and drive her down. I'm thinking, well, it sounds like a pretty good deal. And so, we were going to stay, one night we were going to stay with a relative, so everything was only up and up. So I flew up to Vancouver, and she was coming down from the interior of BC, Kamloops with her dad. So we met at the airport, and he flew home, and I continued with the girl. And she was driving a Bronco 2 at the time, a big car, four-wheel drive. I guess they go into those type of cars in Canada. And unfortunately, on the way down from Kamloops, it stalled a couple of times. I guess it was cold, it was winter, but I've always got me started, and so it looked like it was okay. So anyways, she was going to be down there for a couple of months, so she had some stuff in the back of her car. And so we began driving towards the border. We were going to go to the border at Blaine, which is the major border crossing in Vancouver, which you come down into the United States. It was about an hour wait going to the border. That long line of cars, and we go a little bit, and we'd have to stop and wait like we do in cars. And this car did not like the cold, so it stalled a couple times. But it always restarted, so we kept going down. When we finally get to the border, and this is like a long time ago, pre-9/11, so the border crossings were, you just figure you go to Canada and you come back. It's no big deal. So we get to the border and we get to the customs official, and he spends a couple minutes there. And then he sends us to the immigration official, so we go there. And this immigration official did his best to be intimidating, He kind of asked us, who we were, where we were going, what was our purpose. And he decided that it looked like an immigration to him. It looks like you're immigrating to me. and so, well, she'd say, no, I'm not. I have a job there. I'm just taking a couple months off. I live there. And he just would not believe her. And so we started to say, well, if you're going to not look like an immigrant, you need to have a bank account, in Canada, a place that you're living, a job. He says, so I'm going to divide you. If you think that you can prove all that, you can come again to the border and try again. But let me tell you, if you come to the border and try and sneak across, I'm going to throw you both in jail. He looked serious. So, we got to the border crossing, and so we had to, we were now in the U.S., refused admission, so we had to get back into the line going back to Canada. So we turn around and get back in the line of cars trying to enter back through the border into Canada. So there we are, going back, and about a few minutes into it, the car dies, it will not stop. In the middle of no man's land between Canada and the U.S. And so there we are in line, and Francis is at the wheel, and I'm in the back pushing, and whenever it's our time to move, I'm pushing that little Bronco 2 back into Canada. So that took a while, but we finally get to the Canadian border, and they let us back in. We weren't stuck in no man's land. And we get the car, and then we call it tow truck, and we put it out. And so that day, Frances had some friends in Canada we were able to stay with in Vancouver. And so we stayed there, and of course she's on the phone trying to get, her bank account information. This is before email, trying to get your where she was working to get a letter that said she was on time off. And so we gather all this stuff together and finally put it together, and we have it. And then, of course, we repack the car. We don't want to look like we're immigrating. We take a little stuff out of the car and try to cover things, so it was kind of innocuous. And finally, about a day later, we're ready for our next run at the border. We're thinking, we are not going back to Blaine with Captain Y there over the immigration official. So we pick another border crossing, which is a little bit more obscure place on Highway 13, and no cities around there. And so we drive down there, and we finally get to the border. Maybe 5-car wait this time, which is kind of nice. And we kind of drive up to the customs official, and it's probably about, it's dusk at this point or later. And I remember rolling down the window and looking at this guy. And he says, so where are you from? And you didn't need passports in those days, but I had one, and so I gave him my passport. He says, where are you from? I'm from California. You know, what are you in town for? Well, you know, I was just visiting some friends in Vancouver. Which is true, it's true. He finally looks at me and he says, you know, are you bringing anything back with you? Now, I don't believe in lying. It's kind of against my religion and my lifestyle. And so I'm not going to lie to this guy. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, am I bringing anything back with me? Well, I've got the girl. I've got the Bronco 2 with the Canadian license plates. I've got a whole truckload full of stuff. And I kind of look at him and I says, well, I didn't buy anything. And he hands me back my passport, waves me through, and we made it to California. And all the way to California, and the girl eventually did immigrate, I'm happy to say, and we lived happily ever after. Madame,